single case of seroconversion. Not a single HIV negative person became HIV positive. That didn't stop the Pattian group from estimating the risk of HIV transmission, but they couldn't do it the way that they had wanted. They wanted to actually view HIV transmissions occurring, and they couldn't do that. So through a number of rather questionable assumptions, they came up with an estimate anyway. There are a number of studies on the wives of hemophiliacs, and most of them are HIV negative. There are many serodiscordant couples. One of the most famous such couples is Christine Majori and her husband Robin Scovel. They have been together for 10 years. She has been positive for most of that time, although some of her tests have been negative and indeterminate. Robin Scovel is still HIV negative. How can one partner in a monogamous relationship remain HIV negative for so long in the face of unprotected sex? One of the tactics of the establishment is always to try to personalize their enemy as a single person. And in many cases, that single person has been Dr. Peter Duesberg. They have said, here is a one isolated, discredited scientist. Nobody believes him anymore. He was wrong. He won't admit it. We don't know what's wrong with him. He was once a great scientist. This is what they will say. What they don't tell you is there are actually thousands of scientists who have questioned the connection between HIV and AIDS. On a website that I manage, I have had a list put together of almost 2,500 scientists, doctors, academics, writers, and other people of some accomplishment who have questioned the connection between HIV and AIDS. Some of those people include Kary Mullis. He won the Nobel Prize for Chemistry in 1993 for inventing the polymerase chain reaction. PCR is what's used in the viral load test. Does Kary Mullis, the Nobel laureate, believe in the viral load test? No. He wrote the foreword for Dr. Peter Duesberg's book in 1996. Some of the other high-profile dissidents are Rodney Richards, who was one of the founding scientists with Amgen, one of the biggest biotech companies in the world. He worked with Abbott on some of the early HIV test development. He no longer believes in the HIV tests. Another group of scientists who are very important are what is known as the Perth Group, a group of scientists originally all in Perth, Australia, but the group has expanded a little bit since then. These are the first scientists to really delve into the accuracy of HIV tests. They have done a tremendous amount of work, including peer-reviewed and popular articles on what's wrong with the HIV tests. What does validation of an HIV test mean? The medical establishment has put all their eggs into one basket, and this basket is the infectious theory of HIV and AIDS. They've spent billions of dollars on research, on public health programs, on their own salaries, on all kinds of things. Billions and billions of dollars have been spent on this infectious theory. Their careers have been built on this theory. The people who are promoting the HIV equals AIDS equals death dogma are people who would not have a high-profile position if it wasn't for HIV and AIDS. Many of the charities that have grown up around HIV and AIDS would not get funding from the public if HIV AIDS went away. The prestige of these people, their positions, their appointments to universities, everything would vanish for these people. And not only that, but there would be massive lawsuits. Because not only have they wasted a lot of money, they've wasted a lot of lives. They've persuaded a lot of people to go on to drugs that killed them. Millions of people have gone on these drugs. Millions of people have suffered severe anemia and died because it was so severe. They've died from liver failure. They've died from heart attacks. They've died from these abnormal skin reactions. Millions of people have died, and if those people went into court, basically the entire medical industrial complex would be bankrupt. Every drug company that had anything to do with HIV and AIDS, which is the majority of them, would be bankrupt within a couple of years. They could not afford to pay the damage that they have done. The media has played an incredibly large role in the persistence of the HIV/AIDS theory. Peter Duesberg relates many situations where he was invited to be interviewed by major news outlets. It was canceled at the last minute. And instead of Peter Duesberg, viewers would have seen Tony Fauci from the National Institute of Health or one of the other big mainstream AIDS advocates. The media has a really big problem, and I think it stems from the fact that most journalists are not really highly educated in science. So they have a bit of an inferiority complex. So when they go up against somebody who's running, a top AIDS research establishment, and that person is yelling and saying these people are dangerous and they should not even be on the air, because if you let Peter Duesberg or the Perth Group or Rodney Richards talk, it's dangerous and people are going to die. The media is easily intimidated by those kinds of things. So they have played a big role. It takes a lot of courage to stand up and say, this is wrong, I'm going to report the truth. And the truth is that if you're a journalist who says, I'm going to report the truth in today's market where a few very powerful people control the media outlets in most countries, you'll lose your job. So the media, many of them are kind of caught. If they know the truth, they can't tell it. If they do tell it, they lose their job, and then they can't tell it because they're no longer a member of the media. Another set of organizations that have played a huge role in AIDS are the AIDS activism groups. This started amongst the gay community when they said, we want drugs to cure this viral infection. They did not want to deal with the drug abuse epidemic within their own population. It was an abuse of many drugs, but mostly inhalant nitrate poppers. They had a choice. They could either deal with the drug abuse or they could blame it on their promiscuity. And they chose to say, we're promiscuous, but we're not drug users. Instead of looking at what's the truth. The truth is that they were using dangerous drugs and that their promiscuity was not really such a big problem. But these groups managed to shut off the whole discussion of drug use amongst gay men. And of course, we know that IV drug users are obviously using drugs as well. But amongst the gay community, the issue of are these drugs dangerous was not allowed to be discussed. And if somebody outside the community tried to discuss it, they were accused of being homophobic. So the leaders of the gay community have played a large role in maintaining the viral epidemic theory and in maintaining the fiction that drugs were the only solution for AIDS.